Hey guys, SickMotion here with the patch 5.24 notes. Let's see. My goal is always to rifle through this real quick, and I seldom get that goal. Let's see if we can do it this time. All right, there's some new holiday-related stuff in the store. Go look at those if you want. The new Poppy is out on this patch. I played her for the first time, the rework of her on the PBE while NA was down. Hopefully, I mean, I hated the Scion rework when it first came out, and I really enjoyed playing Scion, so hopefully this is similar to that, but I really didn't have much fun with her. But I guess in time we'll get to see what her strengths really are, and hopefully they're fun strengths, because I didn't really enjoy it today. Ash stacks to reactivate Ranger's focus is down by one. Little bit of a buff there. Glacial Storm shield duration is down uh, by 1 second, so cut in half from 2 to 1, and the maximum range is reduced as well. Really oppressive to play against a good Nivea player who knows the range of her ult perfectly and is able to hit you with just a tick of it to get you slowed, to get you with her E that chunks the hell out of you. So there's that. That's actually a pretty big nerf as far as the overall feel of her gameplay. Of course, there's Azir in this patch. There's always Azir in this patch. Fixed a bug. Who would have thought? All right, you can read that later. I'm done with Azir bugs. There's always going to be more bugs. Bard. I did my A to Z. First time I've ever played Bard was Bard top lane. I did horribly. I got a F for achievement, but I got an A in fun. I had a ton of fun that game. We ended up winning it. Had nothing to do with my performance, but I realized that I really enjoy playing Bard. I hadn't played him until then because when he first came out, he was pretty weak, and I thought he was kind of just a crap champion, won't lie. And then he got buffed a few times. Still never ended up playing him. That was literally the first time I played Bard. I played every other champion multiple times, but that was the first time I played Bard. I really enjoyed playing him. So now there's Bard buffs here. I'll probably be playing him when I have to play support quite often now. So buffs on Bard, great by me. Um, Although the AP ratios won't matter too much unless you're stacking mad AP. Unless you're playing that solo lane Bard. Solo lane Bard buff. Pillar of Flame, mana cost up, Brand's win rate and pick rate has gone up immensely since the new patch, so nerfs. Attacks per headshot is at 6. It's normalized at 6. So better for her early, not as good late, but there it is. And I mean, late you'll have a lot of attack speed, so it'll be easy anyway. Mundo got his cleaver current health damage toggled and changed. It's still the same at early and the same at later, unless you're a monster or minion, you take less maximum damage as the game as you level up the Q, as well as his E no longer works on structures, so the auto attack reset on it won't just chunk the hell out of it, and its maximum health scaling scales up to 5 at level 5 of the skill rather than starting at level 5. I still think Mundo's pretty insanely strong. People in my games today, mind you, I was smurfing in Platinum, didn't seem to think so. No one was picking or banning him. I have a feeling he's still very strong, though, so we'll see what that does. Fix the bug, Versated Devour, blah, 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 on Echo. You shouldn't be doing that, so go move on from there. Hecarim nerfs. Everyone's been asking me about this for a very long time. His health growth stat has gone down by 5, so that's 90 less health at level 18, I think. His base health has gone down by 19, so 109 health total. It's kind of painful. Um, his passive no longer causes him to ignore unit collision, but he now ignores unit collision while using his E. And I mean, that sucks, but they removed a lot of the minion blocking that they introduced with these past couple patches and put it back to pre-season 6. So the minion blocking won't be as bad. It still sucks that they nerfed him, but I don't think it's like the end of the world like every single person in my Twitch chat has been thinking. He's still playable. I'll still play him. I honestly think the health nerf is probably going to be more felt in the long run. But it is kind of annoying. Where you will notice it is in those level 1 engages, in those level 1 death bushes, whereas if you're a big tanky character, you just get boxed in before you can just run over your teammates, and now you can't. Jinx, they made it so when shooting with your rockets, it doesn't make you feel locked up as much, but it's still the same attack speed. They just made the cast time different. So that's the animation for it. And the Runin's Hurricane bolts actually shoot mini rockets. Also, they weren't critting, but they shoot mini rockets. More important is that awesome change. Karthus Wall of Pain drops to half effectiveness after a second. If you've ever been slowed by a Wall of Pain by Karthus, you'll know you're pretty much slowed indefinitely. But a lot of Karthus will build Rylai's. You hit that wall, you hit 1Q, and then they're pretty much slowed by Rylai's anyway, so it doesn't matter. Kindred's healing has gone down early and later, as well as the cooldown on her ult has gone up early and down at level 3. The healing is just insane on Kindred if you've ever actually looked at how much it heals you and how often, so I can totally understand that change. Removed the attack damage ratio percentage health damage on Kog'Maw, made it a lot more dumbed down and easy to read that it just does 2% of the target's maximum health as magic damage regardless of your scaling ratio. Malzahar's Null Zone has gotten nerfed. For all those Malzahar players you're seeing every game, I don't know. There must be some stats for that, but it's nerfed. It's 2% less at later levels. Master Yi, this is just a tooltip fix apparently. It's a tooltip fix almost 3 years in the making as well. Misfortune's actually super duper strong. I played her in the A to Z and she felt really, really buff. The attack speed from her W now actually scales with level a lot harder, so it's 20% less effective early on, and then it scales up to 100% effectiveness. Make It Rain, the slow on Make It Rain at level 1 was 40%. That was quite a lot. Still scales up to 60, but it's a lot more manageable early, so I think that'll have a big change as well. Although that spell's pretty mana costly to be using in lane anyway. Nidalee's base damage on her spear as well as max damage on her spear has been increased, just buffs across the board there. Quinn, another one that's been like really, really strong since they changed everything on her multiple times. Her base attack damage down, her base damage on her Q is down, the attack damage ratio is down, and the mana cost actually scales now, so it costs more mana as it goes up. Quinn does a hell of a lot of damage. All of this change in mind, she's still going to be strong, and the annoyance of that Q's utility is still going to be there. It's a grave smoke that follows you. Who could not have fun in that? Rammus's Powerball slow duration is lowered by 1 second. Champion hit radius is lowered by 75. No longer freaks out when trying to path around minions when powerballing. I wonder if that's actually a change they made, or they just changed the minions and that's what they went back to. Rammus top lane, if you rush with Thornmail and stack armors, especially against melee champions and AD champions, is ridiculously oppressive. So I could almost see more Rammus nerfs if people catch on to that. Holy shit, look at this. Riven's base health regen has been buffed by 2 health per regen per 5. It's actually quite a big buff considering that Riven never really gets buffs and everyone seems to hate Riven and they buffed her here. But apparently it's a lot of champions that don't synergize with crit or attack speed, and just like an old AD caster aren't having the greatest time. Riven's win rate has actually gone down quite substantially, and I honestly think that has less to do with the champion itself and more to do with the interaction with the old I guess I can call it old now. The way they changed the minions to block the shit out of you if you're a melee champion. I played Riven even after, not on the current patch, but on the patch previous to this where they reverted a lot of the minion blocking changes, but they still were there. And a lot of the times you'd end up queuing in random directions because that's where your character is facing, because that's how it chose to path around minions. If you didn't just smash off all the queues at once and you were auto-pathing in between those and your character was like, holy shit, there's a minion in front of me, better walk back to base and back. Sometimes you would end up queuing backwards unexpectedly, and I think that has a lot to do with it. The loss of control due to the minion blocking is why our win rate was lower. But anyway, there's a Riven buff there. A lot more context on it than you needed. Sivir, Ricochet, higher scaling damage. She's just kind of not been picked as much now that all the other AD carries have cool new things, and she didn't. Fractured, missile speed is no longer destroyed, or the missile itself is no longer destroyed after hitting 6+ targets. And the Impale attack damage ratio is nerfed to 0.6. I mean, it was really high. It was 0.1 on the start and then 0.1 when it popped, so that was quite a huge attack damage ratio. But no one was playing a Skarner anyway. Better nerf them. I mean, I guess there must be some type of stats on that they need to change that, or they feel they need to. Starcall's range reduced, Astral Infusion mana cost doubled early and then still 20 higher later on. And here's the other one. Salt in the wounds. Grievous wounds no longer is removed by her ult. All right, that's a nice nerf to you yourself, Soraka. But since Grievous wounds does not affect heals from allies, you're still broken and need to be deleted. They need to revert that change. That's why Soraka's strong. None of this shit here. Swain, his Swain nerf here. I know Swain actually had a lot of win rate increases with the new patches, so I guess they had to nerf that a little bit. His W is actually a 1 second snare rather than 2, and then scales up to 2. So you actually have to level and invest some time into it, which might not be the worst because it's actually his main form of wave clear as well. I mean, his ult's AoE, but it's less reliable than just killing everything at once. Tom Kench no longer gains movement speed when moving away from enemies while devouring an allied champion. I'm assuming that means he can still run his dudes in, but he just can't do it while coming out of the fight. This mechanic on Tom is still going to be frustrating forever just because of what it does, so it's going to be a very mild feeling nerf. Magic damage on Twisted Fate's cards was reduced per level up to 20 at max level from where it was base damage. I guess Twisted Fate's win rate's pretty high. I think I remember seeing that. Fixed the bug where 3 Talon Strike was incredibly slow. Well, that's a big bummer. Attacking with 3 Talon Strike now properly refreshes the buff duration. Cool. Ziggs now deals 100% damage from his passive to structures. Because I don't remember the last time I saw Ziggs better buff him. Some jungle monster tuning. They changed a few things around. They gave Greater Krug 10 more health and reduced its base armor by 2. Whoa, I know, absolutely game-shattering breaking. So much so that we're going to have to think about that for a while and not even talk about the Dire Wolf, because it is even more game-shattering. The changes are so minuscule, I don't even know why they did it. No one would actually notice if they didn't put that in the patch notes, I don't think. Cool change to the Rift Herald. Eye no longer stays open when in execution range, but the Rift Herald will no longer automatically grant the buff to whoever kills it. Instead, it will drop a relic on the ground for the killing team, granting it to whoever picks it up. So if you have someone tanking it because the other guy got too low, but you wanted the guy that was tanking it to get the buff, but he can't because he's not hitting it from behind to get that execution damage, you can actually choose who gets the buff, and it's to the allied or to the team that kills it. So I'm assuming it's not interactable or interact withable, or some type of better wording for that by the team that didn't get it. So you can't just like wait for them to kill it and come and jack their buff anyway. They get to actually choose who they put it on, which is really, really nice. I like that change. I think that change is great. It's going to make it a lot more usable as a strategy for an objective. A couple ward changes here. Fixed the bug where the amount of vision given by a ward wasn't actually represented correctly by the range indicator, so a little bit of clarity on that. Fixed the bug where the amount of vision given by different types of wards were different based on type. The amount of time before a ward regens or regains vision after being disabled by a lens has been extended. So disabling a ward, a lot of people don't even realize this. If you sweeping lens a ward, it will lose its ability to see shit. And now that loses its ability to see shit for another 1 second. Wards that are targeted within 25 units of a bush will now seek out to plant themselves in the bush instead. So no more of that. You planted a ward in a bush, but it's not actually in the bush because there was a piece of grass missing in the middle of that bush or something dumb like that. And you're like, you get ganked from a bush, and you're like, oh, why did I get ganked from this bush? I had a ward in it, but the ward actually wasn't in the bush, but visually 99% sure, you bet your life on it, it was. That's a huge quality of life change. I like that change a lot. Monsters no longer push wards in their path outside of their stating position. Outside of their stating position. Is that supposed to be stating position or is that starting position? I don't know. I'm not trying to be a grammar Nazi here, but I honestly don't know if I'm just not understanding that or that's supposed to be starting position. But I definitely have seen the red buff like kick a pink ward or kick a normal ward out of its way when it's trying to reset. So I think that's hilarious. I've often looked for how much money has my banner of command made me, because if you didn't know, the minion that you buff up from your banner of command, if it gets a kill on the other end of the map, it actually gives you the money for that kill. That's awesome. But you had no way to track how much money you made, like a lot of other gold regen things, to see how much use you were actually getting out of it. Like even the Zrop portal tells you how much money you've made from the Zrop portal minions, but the banner didn't, and now it does, so that's awesome. Dead Man's Plate nerfed by 100 health. Rageblade area of effect nerfed by 100. Honestly, the area of effect is nice for pushing the waves. It'll still be just as effective, and it's not going to make it any less effective in a 1v1 duel situation, so I still think the Rageblade is really strong. There's a different change that I think Rageblade champions will get a little weaker from later on in here, but I'll tell you that once we get to there. The maximum 20% bonus cooldown reduction is now reached at 30% critical strike from other sources. I didn't actually read this. Now I'm confused. Let me look at this really quick. At 20% critical strike from other sources, 2/3 of the max essence server now grants 10% bonus cooldown, half of the max. It's providing a path for spellcasters. Okay. So I guess if I'm not mistaken, you still get the bonus 30% total. You get the 10% from the item and 20% bonus, but it almost looks like it's like you have to get build 30% crit. So rather than getting a 1-to-1 with bonus crit, you need to um, you don't get quite a 1-to-1. You get like a 0.1 or a 0.75 or something. I don't know, math and stuff. Anyway, it looks like right here, instead of getting 30% for getting that bonus 20% crit, you need to get 30% crit, which is still fine. Like if you build if you build like a Shiv afterwards, you'll still get that bonus 30%. But if you don't, if you build a Trinity Force, it looks like you won't get as much CDR. Zeal costs 100 more, and all the items that build out of it cost 100 more. Just a thing. Energized attacks now prioritizes the greatest damage of your energized attacks for the first target hit rather than all damage. What I'm not sure here, I understand it. They don't want you to just blow everything on the first hit and just chunk the hell out of someone from 500 miles away with your rapid fire Shiv. So if it procs, say, the Shiv first or the rapid fire first, whatever one it ends up proccing first, does the other one stay charged or does it discharge those charges? I doubt it discharges those charges, but there's not very much clarity into that there. So that'll be something you'll have to look for in game to figure out for the first time. Attack speed on Phantom Dancer is up by 5%. Farsight, a lot of people have started to realize, wow, it's unlimited amounts of wards. Yes, unless people clear them, but a lot of time if people don't clear them, you can have like 5 or 6 wards out by this thing at a time. And a big strength of that was the cooldown from it. Started at 61, went down to 48. Now it's going down to 60, which is about what it started at level 9, and you'll have a 60 at 18. And the vision radius is smaller. The initial radius it gives you is still the same, but the lurking radius is smaller. And now has a dual indicator to display both the range of the initial clairvoyance as well as the remaining ward's vision. I think that they did need to change this to not have it up as often because there's honestly just clairvoyance battles back and forth. Everything was warded all the time. You had to honestly, you'd sweep through half your jungle, then you'd have to start over again because it might have already been rewarded in a bunch of places just because of the short cooldown on these. Devour now gives 5 stacks for assists and kills on Rift Herald rather than the assists only giving 1. And the other big changes here are these mastery trees. Feast's cooldown is up 5 seconds. It's actually pretty strong if you think about it. Getting 20 health back every 20 seconds was basically 5 HP 5. Considering that the other mastery tree gives you 2 HP 5, this was giving you 5 HP 5 because it was giving you 60 health a minute on perfect use. If you weren't killing the thing right when it came off cooldown, obviously a little bit less, but it was still very, very high sustain. Fervor, this is the really big change in the masteries here. Only stacks on champions hit using abilities no longer grant Fervor. So if you have your Fervor stack saved fully on Hecarim, you can't just keep spamming your Q to keep it fully stacked. However, melee attacks now grant double stacks, so you can stack it faster, and hitting an enemy champion grants 2 stacks with a spell on a 2-second cooldown. So if you auto and then hit a spell, you already have 4 stacks of Fervor, and then you auto 3 more times and you're at 10 stacks already, and added a particle when you have max stacks. So this is actually a nerf to champions using Fervor in lane, because the way that Fervor felt in lane is that if someone was able to sit in the minion wave auto-attacking without you there, once they were auto-attacking, they were going to stack their Fervor, and they were going to have it fully stacked, and you don't want to fight them when their Fervor's up, especially if a Fervor versus Fervor top lane champions. If they had their Fervor stacked and you didn't, you were just automatically at a huge disadvantage in a fight there. And then if you were on the opposite side, you were in the minion wave stacking your Fervor and they weren't, then you had a big advantage over them in that case. This makes it so you can't do that in lane, but it actually is a buff later on. Once you're not auto-attacking stuff in between fights, you're just full-on engaging on people, you'll get your Fervor stacked up a lot faster. if you're melee. If you're ranged, shit out of luck, man. Unless you cast an ability, then you get a little bit, but it's every 2 seconds. So I think it's meant to tone it down in lane, but still make it kind of give it a trade-off. It's stronger than it was earlier, or previously later on in the game. Willer's Bloodlust can no longer proc multiple times. I guess that was just a bug within its 2 second cooldown. Deathfire now duration is 4 seconds, but it's the same amount of damage. Area effect is 2 seconds to double that, and persistent damage duration is actually down to 1 second rather than 1.5. So this is actually a pretty big nerf if you think about it, to champions like Swain, champions like Cassio, champions like Brand, who actually benefited immensely from this mastery and saw their win rates going up very huge. 4 seconds rather than 3 for the same amount of damage. So it's going to have to stay on them longer to do the same amount of damage. When a dot's ticking on someone, after the last dot ticks, then that is the last tick of damage. So then your Deathfire would originally go for another 1.5 seconds after that last dot tick, as well as resetting its tick over and over during the dot. Now it only goes for a second longer, and it is a 4 second timer for that damage. So it went from being half of what it was before. So basically you would get half of your initial damage on that last tick to getting a quarter. So it's actually a pretty big nerf here if you look at it. Let's see the Cunning Tree. There's actually a new mastery. You deal 1.5% increased damage when no allied champions are near you. So if you're in a solo lane, you'll get that damage. If you're bot lane, probably not the best mastery, at least for early. The penetration mastery wasn't the greatest. The armor pen, the magic pen staying the same, but the armor pen goes up by 0.5 per level and starts at 5. So rather than getting like less than 9, I think it's like 8.2 ish here, if I did the math in my head right now on the spot correct. You get I think 14 armor pen. 14 armor pen from that master is actually pretty good if you think about where your sources of flat armor pen are. 14 armor pen's actually quite a lot. So now the trade-off for not having that bonus 5% cooldown reduction is actually there. You might have to think about it. Another big buff to AD champions here is you get 0.1 attack damage ratio on your Thunderlords, which is a 50% increase from where it was. No buff to APs, just the ADs. APs were having enough fun with this, but that's basically because that's the only really viable stuff for Burst Mage or whatever. I mean, there's Deathfire, but you're not going to be wanting to use Deathfire on someone who just goes in for quick trades or burstiness. Added a particle on activation of Storm Rager Surge, so you're not just all fast all of a sudden and confused why, and then you realize after it's too late and you've lost your buff anyway. Armor and magic resist on shields and heals from wind speakers is gone down from 15% to a flat amount based on whoever has the higher amount to base that off of. It's taken the highest between the caster and the target. So that's actually a pretty big nerf to that one as well. I think it is. I don't know. It really depends on the situation, I guess. I mean, if you were healing like a 600 armor Malphite and you were giving him an extra 90 armor, yeah, it's kind of broken. And the Resolve Tree. Bonus armor and magic resist down by 1%. The movement speed in Bush and River up by 3 flat. Tough Skin had a bug where it was reducing all damage from spells and whatnot as well. Veteran Scars, instead of being a late game mastery for 4% of total health, is now just 45 flat to start. That's actually stronger in lane early, but you got to keep in mind 4% of 1,000. Once you get to 1,000 health is 40, so then it's kind of all downhill from there. And the Bond of Stone got a buff for your solo. You're at 3% reduction instead of 2. But the damage reduction with an ally is now 6% instead of 8. And your ally block damage is down to 5% health, so you can actually block damage to a dangerously low amount instead of from 15. Because once you get to 15 health before and now 5, you're not going to be blocking damage anymore because you're just getting a little lower. All minion pathing changes made in 5.22 and 5.33 have been reverted. Thank God. Thank God. And this is another big change, something that I was always talking about at the end of the last season. Minions won't gang up on a single enemy minion when no enemy minions are present. So that RNG pushing where sometimes, like, it usually didn't get this radical, but you could come to lane after double jungling or doing a camp for yourself, and you could have, they could have 2 2 minions for you to farm out of the first 2 wave, and only one of your minions has died, so they automatically come back to lane at around the same time as you, but they have like a. It usually wasn't this dramatic. Like a bad case of it would be like they'd have a 5 or 6 minion advantage, but sometimes I seen it as hard as like 9 to 10 minion advantage from getting to lane back at the same time, just because the minions RNG focused fired each other in a weird way and pushed towards one side. This would have been an awesome change for last season, because it's still a good change to have. The RNG factor to be removed is really nice, but no one does double jungle anymore. No one is doing this camps to start, because you don't get level 2 off of it anymore, because that's the change they made. The jungler getting bonus experience because of their jungle item is able to get level 2 off one camp, but you aren't as a laner without a jungle item. I mean, you could double jungle if you both had double smite, but you might as well just do your own camp if you have smite, right? So I think this change is one season too late, but it's always nice to get the RNG factor removed. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this. Damn it, 25 minutes, almost 26. I thought I'd be fast. I just went on too many tangents. Sorry, guys. If you're enjoying it, found it helpful, and you have not already, make sure to sub to the channel for more stuff like this. Go take a look around the channel if you are new to the channel, at the other videos as well. Like it if you found it helpful. And as always, my social media links as well as my stream link are in the title if you want to check those out if you are unfamiliar with those already. I am mainly a live streamer. The YouTube's something I started up on the side and hoping to grow as well. But all in all, thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for listening. Take it easy. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you next time.